have on shorts. My body's just long, so that's just a disclaimer. But I have this daily, kind of like a devotional book. Um, I guess you would put it in that category actually, called My Utmost for His Highest, that I found on January 1st of 2019, and the book is one that you read every day. So it starts with January 1st and ends on December 31st. So I've been reading it all year consistently. I do fall off where I might not read for 2 or 3 days and then I just backtrack and read. So it's been a great book. I feel like it has really helped me grow a lot this year with my relationship with God. It just puts a lot of things into perspective, but it is not necessarily a beginner's book, but it is at the same time. I think you just have to be willing to read it and also dissect it, because a relationship with God is not like reading a cookbook. You can't just read it and then go do it. You do want to read it and take action, but it does take work. It is a relationship that you do have to build, and things that are worth it don't come easy. They don't come at the snap of your finger. So if you're, open to really actually building a relationship with God, with the higher power, then I think this is a great book. It is Christian based, but I read it. I wasn't raised, I wouldn't say Christian, because we didn't really go to church, but my parents did speak about God. But that was just kind of it, really. So, I prayed, but I didn't really feel like I had a strong connection, but I did have a connection. But what I'm building right now is really a spiritual foundation. And I feel like that is what is really missing nowadays. If we want to get down to the root of everything, I'm talking about the root of everything. It's a spiritual foundation, and it's it's something that everything else stems out of. Your passion for life stems out of that true spiritual connection to a higher power and understanding what life is really about. And it does take a lot of self-work and discipline, to be honest, but it means everything to you. It literally is the key to life. That is what we spend our entire lives looking for. Believe it or not, we're not looking for money and mansions and fast cars. Don't get me wrong, those things are fun, those things are great, but people have all those things and they still feel empty. I'm not saying that they're not happy, because you can be happy. Like, I'm not saying money buys happiness, but it provides a lot of opportunity. So I see the pros to it, but at the end of the day, you can't take any of that with you. That's what it really comes down to, if we really want to take it there. But the relationship to yourself and a higher power is really what people really search for. They don't really know what their passions are, what they love, what they could wake up and do, every single day, again and again and again and again, and have true joy in their heart when they wake up in the morning. Like, truly be happy when you wake up in the morning. Like, people don't have that anymore. Do you know what it would feel like if people today woke up and as soon as their body woke up, it was like, good morning? Like, nobody feels like that anymore. Nobody really wakes up, and feels that pure joy of just ease and happiness that's supposed to come with life. And it's because we are lacking a spiritual foundation. And it is for a number of reasons that we lack this spiritual foundation that I will not get into, because this video is not about that. This video is about what I just read. So I feel like this speaks to me directly. You have those moments where somebody says something, and it may be super general, but it feels like they were speaking to you directly. Like they put your name on that. And that's how I feel about today's reading, October 13th. I feel like it didn't have to do me like that, honestly. I feel like it did not have to call me out like this. Like, literally, the book was yelling at me, and I'm like, you know what? Why are you yelling? Like, I hear you. Calm down. Like, wow. But it's amazing that something, you know, that words on the page can really speak to you like that. And that's how you know that it's something else. You know you done read something or you done heard a song and been like, dang, why is moving me like this? Why it's got me feeling like this? Like, you speaking directly to me. This is my story. Like, you talking to me. Are you talking to me? You talking to me. Like, this is one of those times. And that's when people, you know, people love to play these games. I don't know if there's a higher power. I don't know about God. Look, it is. You be having certain feelings that you can't explain, and we're just not going to take it there. It's something else out here, okay? Just accept it. Move on. You know, like, pick something else. But October 13th is really yelling at me, so I just felt the need to share. I'm 24, and I'm just feeling all new. I went to a spiritual renewal yesterday at the Black Madonna. And 24 was a birthday that I had a lot of realizations. Just that entire day, my birthday didn't go as planned. It was a birthday unlike any other birthday I've ever had. Any other birthday I've ever had in my life. It was just an interesting birthday. And I had a lot of realizations that day, which was Friday. And then Saturday was the day of the spiritual renewal. And it was something that I really, really wanted to do because it is Christianity oriented, but it is rooted in a lot of African traditions. And you know, the African stuff, it speaks to us. Them drums, that's our stuff. So I just love African stuff. And so I was super, 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 super excited to go to this. And I won't even lie and tell you that afterwards, I did feel a little refreshed, but it wasn't weighing on me like it is today. Like today, it's setting in, and it's probably gonna, you know, set in a couple more days of just wow. And you know, sometimes stuff happens like that. You know, when you're in the moment, you're like, yeah, it's cool, but you don't really realize how cool it was until, you know, that moment is over and you start having other realizations about it. So I would definitely recommend going. It's in the West End, and the next time they have one, I'll share it. But let's get into this. So, October 13th, the title, and when I read the title, it didn't really speak to me. Once I finished the page, I read the title again, and I was like, okay, you know what? Calm down. The title is Individual Discouragement and Personal Enlargement. And it always starts off with a verse. Grab my pen. It always starts off with a verse. So, Moses went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. Exodus 2:11. Moses saw the oppression of his people and felt certain that, quote over, end quote, Exodus 2:11. Now we're starting the actual devotional page. Moses saw the oppression of his people and felt certain that he was the one to deliver them. And in the righteous indignation of his own right, he started to right their wrongs. After the first strike for God and for the right, God allowed Moses to be driven into blank discouragement. He sent him into the desert to feed sheep for 40 years. At the end of that time, God appeared and told Moses to go and bring forth his people. And Moses said, who am I that I should go? In the beginning, Moses realized that he was the man to deliver the people. But he had been trained and disciplined by God first. He was right in the individual aspects, but he was not the man for the work until he had learned communion with God. He was right in the individual aspect, but he was not the man for the work until he had learned communion with God. He was right. He was right in the individual aspect, but he was not the man for the work until he had learned communion with God. We may have the vision of God and have a very clear understanding of what God wants. and we start to do the right thing. Then comes something equivalent to the 40 years in the wilderness, as if God had ignored the whole thing. And when we are thoroughly discouraged, God comes back and he revives the call. And we get the quiver and say, oh, who am I? We have to learn the first great stride of God. I don't think y'all heard me. We may have the vision of God and a very clear understanding of what God wants. And we start to do the thing. Then comes something equivalent to the 40 years in the wilderness, as if God had ignored the whole thing. We feel ignored, and we are thoroughly discouraged. And God comes back and revives the call, and we get the quiver in and say, oh, who am I? We have to learn the first great stride of God. I am that I am. Hath sent for God. Oh, I'm sorry. I skipped a line. We have to learn the first great stride of God. I am that I am, hath sent thee. We have to learn that our individual efforts for God is an impertinence. Our individuality is to be rendered incandescent by our relationship to God. Now, that sounds like a lot, so I'm going to break it down. We have to learn that our individual effort for God is an impertinence. It's irrelevant. We have to learn that our individual effort to God, it's irrelevant. Our individuality is to be rendered incandescent by a relationship to God. Our individual effort for God is irrelevant. Our individual effort to God is irrelevant. Our individuality is to be rendered incandescent by a personal relationship to God. So you're telling me that our individual effort for God is irrelevant, and our individuality is to be rendered incandescent. It's to be rendered brilliant by a personal relationship to God. So our individuality to God is the real key to life. Our individual and personal relationship to God is really the key to life, really. See Matthew 3:17, it says in parentheses, we fix on the individual aspect of things. We have the vision. This is what God wants me to do. But we have not gotten into God's stride. If you are going through a time of discouragement, there is a big personal enlargement ahead. That's the end of the book. Individual discouragement and personal enlargement. Moses, he was in the desert for 40 years with some sheep. Can you imagine that? That just sounds like, why? Literally, why? Why would you do that? Why am I here? You know, that is often the question. And I'm sure Moses had that question. Why am I here? A lot of people today have that question every single day. Why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? Why am I here? God, why do you have me here? Why? We ask ourselves that question so much. And sometimes we say, hey, we're good at this. Hey, we're good at this. But then it all boils back down to nothing, you know. That's how we feel. And we say, God, why am I here? Why am I here? And we start to get discouraged. We start acting up. We start to get discouraged. And then one day, you get that call. Coach putting you in the game. And you say, hold up, me? You done had me riding the bench for how long? And now you want me to go play, coach? Oh, whoa, okay? Whoa. Y'all better start warming up. Coach putting some folks back in the game.